What's going on, everybody? Johnny Bannon here at Trepa Technologies. In today's video, we're going to finish up domain 4.1. So if you're watching these videos in order, we just went over logical security. Now we're going to go over some other very important, sometimes boring stuff, but something as network admins we got to be aware of, understand security so we can speak intelligently, and, it's part of the IT environment. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to get my face out of the way here. So yes, we're going to be going over domain 4.1, explain the importance of basic network security concepts, and we're going to touch on physical security, deception technologies, common security terminology, that's us speaking the language, right? Compliance, and some network segmentation and how we can enforce it. So we're going to be going over the objectives on the right here, and then network segmentation. Okay, so physical security. Start off with something kind of easy, something I think we can understand. So they put cameras in here in the Network Plus exam objectives. I get it, because physically they're there, right? I physically install them. It's also logical too. I've set up cameras on Ubiquity. I'm an IT guy. But anyway, surveillance cameras monitor and record activities in and around a facility. I get it why they're physical, because they record the physical environment so that you can monitor and get alerted in case someone is trying to steal, trying to break in, or something like that. They're a deterrent and a detective tool that we have. And then more on the physical security locks. These are essential for controlling access to buildings, rooms, equipment. We can have computer locks at the lowest level, computer lock that someone can't take out of the desk that it's supposed to be. They prevent unauthorized entry. They may be saying, wow, as a network admin, I need to understand locks. Now, obviously, if you went to school, you know what a lock does. If you just are in the real world, you know what a lock does. But when it comes to protecting our data centers, protecting things, we need to understand that it's more than just going and getting a lock at the CVS, right? Or at the hardware store. We may have biometric locks. We may have RFID or badging systems, right? That lock our access to our data centers or our comms closets. And that's something that maybe as a senior in the IT department and the IT operations, you need to manage, saying, whose badge is going to work to get in that comms closet, right? So locks can be more than just a typical, hey, here's a key. And if we do have physical keys, how are we managing that? It's something we need to be not complacent about. And something that sometimes we do forget. Deception technologies. So deception technologies are security measures designed to mislead attackers. Honeypot, honey nets. They allow people to access what attackers may believe is the real network or the enterprise production network, so that we can then see and track their TTPs, okay? So we have two terms here we're going to go over. A honeypot. These are fake systems. This could be a VM that I put in the cloud, that I open up some ports, give it a public IP, like an external facing IP. Someone's they're going to exploit it because it's easy to steal the public IP addresses that belong to a CSP, a cloud service provider. They're going to exploit it, and then we can monitor, see what they're going to do before they rack up a huge bill by doing egress traffic. But anyways, so this can help an organization like threat hunters, cybersecurity analysts understand TTPs as someone that may attack or that is trying to attack their organization, right? Because they got into your honeypot. HoneyNet is the exact same end goal. But instead of an individual VM or system, it's an entire network. So we put databases. Maybe we have some applications running that are part of this HoneyNet or honeypot system, okay? So this is a more comprehensive view. Maybe we can see how our users are doing lateral movement, how they're doing privilege escalation, or moving between different systems in our HoneyNet. Common security terminology. So yes, sometimes CompTIA is English comprehension test or whatever language you're taking it in. Let's go over these security terms, guys. Pretty basic, but let's do it. A risk, because it is actually sometimes, it can get a little confusing, but a risk. This is the potential for loss or damage when a threat exploits, when a vulnerability is exploited. So this is, okay, what's the risk of having a legacy system without any compensating controls? That's our risk. There's inherent risk, and then there's residual risk. That's after you actually implement some security mechanisms to prevent that risk from being exploited, okay? So risk can arise from various sources, including technology. Big one, the human behavior. What's our risk as an organization to someone falling for a phishing scam? And also environmental factors. Understanding risk helps organizations prioritize security measures. Understanding risk also helps us build a risk appetite for the organization that we kind of determine based on conversation with the stakeholders and C-level suite of, are they risk adverse? Are they risky? What's their risk appetite? And vulnerability. So this is a weakness or flaw in a system, application, or process that can be exploited by a threat. So vulnerabilities can result from coding errors, misconfigurations, or lack of security controls. From the vendor perspective, a vulnerability is when someone out there in the world, in the ether, says, hey, on this Fortinet firewall, we noticed this issue. And then the vendor says, okay, well, now we have a CVE, a common vulnerability enumeration. Now it's out there. CISA has already posted it. And now as a vendor, we got to go patch it. But that's what a vulnerability is. Now, from a network perspective, we could have a Cisco Catalyst 9300 switch that has no known vulnerabilities out there, no patches needed for vulnerabilities, but we enable Telnet though. That's a vulnerability as well on our end now. So we got to make sure we're putting in the proper security controls and hardening to prevent those vulnerabilities. An exploit. This is the method or technique used by attackers to take advantage of a vulnerability. So this is the actual exploit. So when a CVE comes out, there'll be articles about the exploit. Well, here's how it's accomplished. Here's how it's done, right? Here's how we exploit that vulnerability. The CIA triad, something very important, especially when you're starting your security career or getting into cyber, is a CIA triad. Something that sometimes developers, network, security, and cloud are butting heads over. Where security wants lots of confidentiality, lots of integrity. We need to lock things down. And then developers are saying, no, we want to make our users have a good seamless process, but that leaves open holes. And so CIA triad's in a constant, push and pull. It's like almost yin and yang, but there's three of them, right? So what I mean by that is when we talk confidentiality, that's just overall describing how we keep our users' information safe. That's encryption, right? That's access control. That's setting permissions. So confidentiality. We have integrity, ensuring that data is accurate. This is our hashing. This is our digital signatures. This is ensuring we have non-repudiation added to our IPsec tunnel that we're creating site to site. And then we have availability. So this is how easy is it for our users, our customers, to access what they need. And when I say there's always a push and pull, what I mean by this is that if we're putting a lot of security controls to make sure we have good integrity and confidentiality, what's going to happen to our availability? That's going to shrink. If you're thinking of confidentiality, integrity ballooning, that means availability is shrinking. So it's a constant push yin and yang between all the departments in an organization based off a security risk appetite pushed down by the stakeholders of, well, do we want to be so locked down and secure that it may take 5 minutes for that Dell computer that only costs $800 that we bought to actually turn on and get it and log into? Or do we want things highly available and maybe we have some holes in our armor? But at the end of the day, CIA triad, we just got to understand what it is, what the acronym is, and what each acronym means. Confidentiality, encryption and access control. Integrity, hashing, digital signatures, ensuring data is unchanged. And availability, ensuring resources are there when needed and highly available. Audits and regulatory compliance. So this is going to get into kind of what sector you're in, how much you audit, what your compliance is. If you're working in IT versus OT, there's going to be different compliance. If we're in the government versus private sector, we have NIST standards that are gospel in the government that may be just a good suggestion in the private sector, right? So audits. This is a systematic review. Think of like a SOC 2 audit. That's a very, you go through your education in cybersecurity and IT, you always learn about SOC audits, right? But a systematic review and evaluation of an organization's processes, controls, and financial statements. That's kind of, that's a good definition of audit. We're talking cybersecurity, right? That's the audit of our security controls. Regulatory compliance. This is the process of ensuring that an organization adheres to laws, regulations, and guidelines relevant to its industry. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Okay, data locality. This does change some of the compliance. So depending where you store data or what customers you have or where data is being processed could change how you protect that data. A huge one. So compliance and legal considerations based on your data is the GDPR. The EU has something called the General Data Protection Rights. And if you're processing data or storing customer data and that customer lives in the EU, you have to comply with GDPR. HIPAA. That's, I don't know. I mean, HIPAA's a US thing. Right now, I'm like second guessing myself. But if you're processing medical information in America, that's HIPAA. It may be global, but let's just say, right, that there are health regulations that are unique to America. And if you're processing American health information, you have to comply with HIPAA. And from an IT perspective, if we're storing things about our users, which are our healthcare customers, or people coming into our hospital, and we have to comply with HIPAA, that's something you have to be aware of, and you have to understand those rules. PCI. So, PCI compliance, if you're processing credit card information, if you're actually doing the processing, storing, doing those transactions, you own those point of sale machines, and it's going through your network, guess what? You have to be PCI compliant. And I already went over the GDPR, so I won't double tap on it. Okay, some more network segmentation and enforcement. So let's say in our enterprise, we have industrial, so IT, OT environment, information technology versus operational technology. If we have IoT devices or IIoT devices, they needed another acronym because in case it's in industrial environments, we want to segment that, right? Anytime we have an Internet of Things, they're not secure inherently. And that's because, the vendors, people making your smart fridge, do they think the common consumer cares about security? No, because you're putting a smart fridge in your house already. You don't care about security, right? And so they're not going to have encryption. They're not going to be hardened. There's going to be default username and passwords that I can look up. Oh, this is Samsung, this model fridge. Let's say they have some sort of web panel that you didn't even know about over HTTP. I can log in and mess with your fridge, right? We want to segment that. We want to keep that away from anything we may have in production. So if you have a guest network and you want to get a smart fridge for the break room in your office, yeah, go ahead and put that on the guest network. Or maybe you have your own IoT SSID that's in VLAN 107. That's the standard for some reason. 107 looks like IoT. I think that's why you put it in there. So we want to enforce that network segmentation. And then IT, OT. So if we have an IT environment where our users go on Microsoft Teams and they're accessing emails, meetings, but they work, but we're an industrial organization and we have an OT environment, separate those systems, right? So if we have SCADA, supervisor control and data acquisition, a system used to monitor and control industrial processes from a centralized location, don't make that part of the IT in the regular enterprise. ICS, this is another broad term encompassing various control systems used in industrial environments, including SCADA, programmable logic controllers, distributed control systems. Separate that from the IT, okay? And then finally, I've been saying OT throughout this whole video series, but here's the definition. OT refers to hardware and software that detects or causes changes through direct monitoring and control of physical devices, processes, and events. OT is integral to the operation of SCADA and ICS systems. It's a factory, right? Good definition, like it, pause the video, read it. But OT is a different industry. It's an industrial industry, right? And there'll be cybersecurity, really anything, right? Because network administrators, system admins, cloud engineers, cybersecurity engineers. If you work in OT, that's almost like your niche now. There's different protocols, technologies in there that you have to worry about that someone like me coming from the government, which is a pretty common campus network enterprise that I've never touched, right? So OT and IT, separate them. At the end of the day, without making this video too long, that's probably what the CompTIA Network Plus exam wants you to know, okay? And then guest networks. So if you have a BYOD policy where you say, hey, yeah, bring your own computers because you're not part of our research and development team, you're my marketing team. So you may get on Slack, you're just on social media all day. We may have a content calendar application, like Sprout Social that you go on. It's all web-based. Bring your own device. But when you do, you need to connect to the guest network, right? Because we want to segment you off from the corporate network where we may have that research and development. We may have our accounting department, things that we want to safeguard kind of away from you sales and marketing team that just need to be on the regular kind of almost internet without all those security controls, okay? So a guest network, a separate network provided for visitors and also maybe for what I just described. And then a BYOD, this is a policy allowing employees to bring their own personal devices. With BYOD too, there's other things we may want to be aware of. Maybe we want to put, if we allow BYOD, we say cool, but we want to put some mobile device management on that machine because you're going to be working from home. Here's a VPN client, right? Here's these other things that allow us to monitor that. And maybe as a user, you say, no, I don't want that. Then, okay, here's the corporate owned computer we're giving you that may not be as nice as your $3,000 MacBook. So just give and take. But increased challenges, BYOD, increased security risk because it's that user's own computer. All right, quiz time. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to load up our quiz. All right, so I'm at our learning management system on academy.trepatech.com. If you want access to this, all the quizzes, all the exams, click the link in the description below. It's only $69.99. Flashcards coming soon as well. Okay, so let's go to our lessons here. I'm going to go to week 3. I'm going to go to domain. Actually, that's not it. I need to go to domain 4.1.2. And let's go ahead and take our quiz. Let me zoom in here. Let me get my face into view in case I want to post this on our social media. Okay, so question 1. Which of the following is an international regulation focused on data protection and privacy for individuals within the European Union? Well, that is the GDPR. Here's our explanation here. Pause the video if you would like to read. Question 2. In the CIA triad, what does the I represent? Oh, this is a good trick question, right? All I's. It's integrity. The I in the CIA triad stands for integrity. Here's the explanation if you'd like to read it. Question 3. Which term refers to the potential for harm due to a weakness in a system? That is going to be a vulnerability. So which term refers to the potential for harm due to a weakness in a system? That is vulnerability. So there's the explanation. Question 4. What does the term data locality refer to in regulatory compliance? I'm going to go with A, ensuring data is stored in a specific physical location or region. Yep, governed by its own laws, right? Because EU versus US. Anyways, question 5. Network segmentation is often used in industrial Internet of Things environments. What is the primary purpose of segmentation in these environments? So it's going to be A, right? To isolate IoT devices from core network resources. You don't want the IoT devices talking to the enterprise, right? Pause the video if you want to read the explanation. Question 6. Which of the following is an example of a physical security measure? I'm going to go with B, a biometric lock, right? That's in the physical realm. Something that's going to have, put your fingerprint or let me scan your iris, which I've used those before. They suck. Question 7. What is the main purpose of a honeypot in network security? That's to lure attackers, right? That's kind of the term honeypot, but that's going to be A, to lure attackers into a controlled environment. There's the explanation if you want to pause the video and read. Then last question, question 8. Which of the following devices is typically separated onto a guest network to maintain network security? That's going to be C, right? Bring your own devices, BYOD. And there's the explanation. Pause if you would like to read. And there we go, guys. We got 100%. Let's go. So I want to thank everyone for viewing. If you're interested in buying this course on our academy, hit the link in the description below. You get lifetime access to our custom learning management system. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that bell, and stay tuned for our next video when we get into Domain 4.2 of our Network Plus exam.